Hello there. Welcome to another stellar edition of The Other Side, a program of community counseling of Bristol County. I'm very pleased to be here with Alberta Sequeria, who is a local author. We're very happy to have her in studio today. Alberta, welcome.
Thank you.
So you've written several books on the effects of alcoholism in your family. We'd like to hear your story. We'd like to.
Well, you know, it's funny how it started because I had no intentions of ever writing a book. It started with my father. We lived also on North Dighton. He was a one-star retired brigadier general. But he was living in Dennis at the time, and he came down with cancer, and I started panicking, thinking I never took the time to get to know this great man.
Right.
He was also one of the officers of the 26th Yankee Division. But when he was dying, he said to me, you know, Alberta, it's sad when you die, and you can't leave anything for your family. And the reason he said that, he was an only child, and his mother died when he was 2 years old from leukemia. And his father, I really don't know the true story, but he ended up with his grandmother till he was 17, and he went into the service. So he had no brothers and sisters. So I started thinking, well, maybe I can put something together about his life just to leave for the children and grandchildren. But I mean, what do you do when someone's 80 years old? World War II is gone, and most of the men and women in the service have passed away.
Right.
You can't reach them. So I went on the 26th Yankee Division website, and I was extremely lucky. People sent me pictures. They sent me even their memoirs. And so I thought I'd put something together, and I talked about my relationship because we sort of had a distance. But it's funny, as an author, when you write, you start to realize things in your life that was missing and how it happened.
Right.
And I kept thinking, gee, my father really wasn't close to me. But when I wrote the book, I started realizing he really wasn't that close because I never opened up to him. And when I started having trouble in my marriage with my husband drinking, I felt like if I was old enough to get married, I was old enough to handle my problems. So I never told him the truth. I'd say, you know, how are things going? Oh, they're great. And they weren't great.
So what is the name of that book?
That
we have
book
this
is
right
the
here.
first one. The
Would
first
you
one
like
right
to
here
show?
is A Healing Heart.
Okay.
So it's really about my relationship with my father, miracles that happened to me, and it takes me on a trip to Medjugorje in Bosnia and how my life changed.
In Bosnia, why was Bosnia the...
Bosnia is where miracles were happening at the time, and my father, when he got sick, wanted to go over there, but he was too sick to make the trip. And if you read the book, you'll start to understand why I ended up there. But it changed my life. But like any author will tell you, once you write one book, now you wonder, what can I write next?
Sure, it opens the floodgates.
So I thought I'd talk about the years that I really kept behind closed doors because it was the late 60s, early 70s, and it was bad enough you really didn't want people to even know that you had a bad marriage, never mind alcoholism.
Yeah.
And I was a young girl. I was only like 20 years old. I came from a family that was very loving and close, so I couldn't understand what was happening in my life. And I didn't take the time even dating Richie to find out about his family. You know, I was just in love, and I wanted to get married, and I just never thought about it. I mean, I met his family, and they were wonderful, but I never learned that there was alcoholism in his family.
So I'm just trying to connect your dad to the book about your dad. Had that come out before?
Yes, that came out.
Richie?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, that book came out after Richie had passed away.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify,
Yeah. So it took me like 9 years to write the first book because I didn't take it serious.
Right.
Plus, I didn't know what to do if you write a book. So that was another problem.
You pray to the gods that you'll get published. I know firsthand.
Yeah. But I didn't know what to do after a book was published.
Sure.
You know, I was very fortunate that I met another author from Fairhaven. In fact, she's in a group of authors with me. And she brought me to Baker Books, to a writers group, and that's how it slowly started. And I'll tell you, that's the best thing for writers because it gives you support when you don't know what to do, or if you're going to do something that's wrong, you learn from their mistakes, and it saves you time and money.
So when you were writing about your dad in the first book, did you have a background in writing at all, or you just simply poured your heart out?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I just put everything down into the computer. And God bless computers. They're great for authors. All you have to do is delete, cut, paste, you know.
Word spell check.
So if you've got something in the beginning of the book and you want it at the end, or you say, oh, I just thought about what I was supposed to do. You can add it anywhere. So that's how I got started. In fact, I took a computer course.
So did you, when you were doing the book on your dad, did you find in your heart and in your words things that you were very painful to examine?
I think it was painful just for the fact that I started realizing now, like we all do when it's too late, that I could have had a fantastic relationship with him. And all I had to do was talk to him about my life. My father was also president of Pyrotector in Hingham, which was a smoke detector company. So my father was a very brilliant man, and he was very much a family man. And he had no idea that I was having these problems. And I'm sure being a father, let's face it, you know your daughter's being abused no matter how much you love your son-in-law, because I did love him.
Yeah.
He might have helped us. And I didn't turn to him. I didn't know where to turn.
So how, at what point did you make the decision, you know what, now it's time for me to write. I need to purge and talk about my feelings?
Like I said, that started with probably about 8 years after my father died. Because in between that is when I took the trip to Medjugorje. And I thought, well, my father wanted to go, maybe I can combine that with my story, which I'd already started the book.
So tell me about the trip. What was it like?
Oh, the trip.
I have trouble even going to Raynham. You know, even that short trip, I get, oh.
Well, I'll tell you, even with my story, it's in a healing heart. I petrified to fly.
I hear that.
Petrified. And I tried convincing my husband that he could go with me.
Yeah.
And miracles happened because my husband wasn't even going to church back then. And he says, he's going to laugh, but he says, Alberta, I don't have to go to Medjugorje to hear the Blessed Mother. He says, why don't we go to Hawaii? You know?
That's right, that's right.
I still haven't gone to Hawaii. But by the time my life has changed with this book, and coming back from Medjugorje, my husband's going to church every week with me now.
Oh, that's great, yeah.
And so our life did change that way. To me, it's in God's time and His way.
Yeah.
So that's how I believe the book started, too, because like I said, I had no intentions of writing. But the other one, Someone Stopped the Merry-Go-Round, was a little bit harder because I can mention it now because it's been okayed, but Richie is the brother to Sonny Lopes and Anita Lopes. They own the Lopes Construction in Taunton on Winthrop Street.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful family. I don't even want to use the word ex because we've all been close ever since I got married. But when you're writing memoirs, you have to make sure you get the people's permission.
Absolutely.
And they were very well known in town, and I didn't know, at first I started out making it a fiction because I didn't have the okay, but then, God bless them, they worked with me.
Right.
And they finally wanted to help other people. In fact, their daughter Paula was, of course, Laurie's cousin, but they were inseparable, and she's now battling the same disease.
Right.
So once that book got written, I didn't realize that my daughter Laurie was also drinking. And that's when Please God Not 2 came out. I had hoped that after I wrote the second one that I'd write a book called Laurie and just have her tell me her feelings and the pain she went through with her addiction. But after 3 alcoholic rehabs, Laurie passed away November 22nd,
and how old was Laurie?
She was 39.
39.
And so writing the book, I was sort of divided because half of me was saying logically I did the best I could with what I knew, but the other half being a mother.
Right.
I look back, and of course, Laurie took a lot of secrets with her. She would hint about things that happened, but Laurie never opened up, and I thought it was just with me, but I have another daughter, Debbie Dutra. In fact, she's the manager of Lopes Construction, and we did a lot of talking after we lost Laurie, and I wanted her to tell me the story what her sister told her, because Laurie moved in with her 2 kids to Debbie's house in Berkeley for about a year. So I figured being sisters, they talked.
They probably had, sure, absolutely.
And she said, Ma, I didn't know either.
How do you think she hid it so well? I mean, if you have a drinking problem, you would think
Well, first of all, by then I had remarried, and I married Al and moved to Rochester.
Yep.
And, but we never saw her Like she had a lot of cookouts at her house. We never saw her, like people expect drunks. You fall down, you slur your words,
right.
You get into arguments. Laurie was a very low-keyed, easygoing girl. So she drank, but you never saw her get drunk. But the last 2 years, we knew because she couldn't hide her health issues. Her marriage had fallen apart. Her second marriage, she'd been married once, and she had a son and daughter. And she was like divorced for 14 years, and then she met a gentleman from Lopes Construction, and they got married, and I was happy. I thought, oh, thank God, you know, everything's gonna be fine, but it turned out it wasn't. She lost her job. She lost a house. She had a car repossessed. I mean, you hear and read about other children that live out of, I hate to say it, but it was true, a trash bag. But that doesn't happen to your child because that's not the way they lived or they were brought up. But it happened.
Yeah.
She lost everything. And that is heartbreaking to a parent. And you can't help them.
Now, Laurie was married?
She got married. She had a daughter and a son. And then she was divorced for 14 years. And then she remarried a gentleman from Lopes Construction. And she was married for about 2.5 to 3 years when it started falling apart. So when her marriage fell apart and she was losing weight, I really thought it was from nerves.
Right.
But I learned also that from her later that she was also bulimic. And being a mother, you wonder, how do I miss this? But my husband gets frustrated with me because he says, Alberta, you don't know if somebody doesn't tell you. Now when I think back, that's how my father didn't know. I did the exact same thing to him that my daughter did to me.
Yeah.
You know?
It's tragic. I mean, losing someone and having alcoholism is, I mean, I know, a little bit about dual recovery, having emotional disorder as well as alcoholism. And there were no signs. I mean, were there signs in her personal life, looking back now, that you said, well, maybe?
Well, now, I can remember I was a dispatcher for the town of Dighton for the police department for 10 years. And very rare, but I would go away for a weekend, and my daughters by then were like 16 and 20, 21, so I thought they were all right for an overnight.
Yep.
And I'd get back to work on a Monday morning at the police department, and I never looked at the shift for the report, like from 8 to, to midnight. I was already looking for midnight to 8, and I didn't realize that police were called to my house, and my neighbors didn't tell me. They had wild parties when I was gone.
Yeah.
But my daughter, Debbie, which I didn't realize, took off to stay with her friends.
After the break, I'd like to delve into some of what you get out of being a writer. I think it's something we'd like to hear, the way you can get your feelings out. And we'll be right back after the break.
For years, scientists have explored remote corners of the Earth, searching for exotic substances that might help prevent cancer. At last, man has discovered a secret place where powerful remedies can actually be found. Medical research shows that a vegetarian diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains can help prevent many types of cancer. Wherever you live, cancer prevention is as close as your grocery store. To learn more, call 866-906-WELL.
Join us this fall at Step Out, Walk to Fight Diabetes. Bring your friends, family, and coworkers to walk with thousands of people from across the country and help us change the future of diabetes. The money you raise will make a difference. Together, we can stop diabetes one step at a time. Register today at 1-888-DIABETES or visit diabetes.org/stepout.
You said. Yeah, come on, you promised.
Well, the deal was you had to finish your homework first. Okay.
Throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care.
Tips on staying involved. Just one of the many ways PTA can help enrich your child's learning experience and life. Join us today. PTA, every child, one voice. making sure playgrounds are safe. Just one of the many ways PTA can help you create a healthy environment for your child.
I'm fine.
Join us today. PTA. Every child, one voice.
All right, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that PSA. I did. We're back here with Alberta Sequeria, who is a local author and public speaker as well, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But let's talk. We talked about your first book. Let's talk about the second book you wrote.
The second book I start right out when I was a teenager. And in fact, at the time, I was dating a boy I was crazy about. He was in the service and he lived out in the western part of the country. But he had to go on a long 1-year tour in the Navy.
Yep.
And somehow I opened the doors when I met Richie and didn't realize that I was going to bring in a lot of fear and confusion in my life. So I lost a boy that I really was crazy about.
Yeah.
But I also was crazy about Richie. And I thought, like I think most girls, is love will get you through everything as long as you, and we always think we can change a person.
Absolutely.
And when we got married, we were like any couple. We were very happy. You know, we had the 2 girls, and we struggled like anybody. But then all of a sudden, I started noticing he got a job working for a gentleman in Somerset at a TV business. Well, the very building next door was the Elbow Room in Somerset.
Yep.
So it was very easy for them to call and say, I'll be home late tonight.
Yeah.
We have to talk business over. And I'm just as easygoing, so I figured, well, you know, they got things to talk about.
Sure.
But it led on. I was very lucky, I'd say, for about maybe the first 3 or 4 years. We never really argued. I would put things under the rug. I didn't want to upset anything. Now I realize, now studying alcoholism,
Yep.
that that's what family does, and I became a huge enabler for my husband. And I try to keep him with the family to keep a father for the kids. And it was so wrong. It really wasn't a healthy attitude at all, because the kids really needed someone to protect them. Instead of protecting Richie, I should have been protecting the girls. And that's what I wrote a lot about in Someone Stop the Merry-Go-Round. I spoke about the honesty with the fights, the arguments,
Yeah.
the fear the kids had. I'm just learning now from my other daughter, Debbie, other things that they feared that I didn't know. I mean, now you feel guilty.
Sure. You try to protect your kids.
I try to protect them, and meanwhile, my personal advice to people is separate. If it's meant to be for you to get back together again, you will. And basically, I think you're helping the abuser more by having them face their problem than to keep protecting them. And it makes you, I made it very easy for him to just come home.
When he came home, was he aggressive or just simply?
Not for years. And then I'd say after about 10, 12 years being married, we lasted for 17 years. And then he got to the abusive stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I swear one night I even had a concussion.
Oh.
And I still didn't want to go to the hospital, because if I went,
They'd ask you.
they'd ask me
Right,
about
what
See,
happened?
When you get older and you get the experience, you realize that that was a very bad way to handle it. But I didn't know what to do. And in fact, back then, I didn't have a job. So I'm thinking, where am I going to go? I've got 2 young kids. But by now, my kids are like 12 and 16 years old.
So tell me, towards the end of his life, how did the end come? How did it?
Well, in the book, it shows where we divorced, but I never talked bad about him to the kids. I didn't believe in it. I always told him he was sick. But the book ends where my 2 daughters, Laurie was 17 and Debbie was 21, and they were by his bedside when he died at the Providence VA hospital. So I'm really proud of that, no matter how hard the life was with it, that they still had the love for him.
So if Richie could have read the book, what do you think he'd?
Well, I would hope he would realize, because we went to some counseling for a couple of months, and he turned around and said, well, I didn't know who to go for a counselor, so it was like putting names in a hat.
Sure.
And I picked out a wrong thing to do, because this counselor said, well, I have a drink every night. I don't see anything wrong with it.
That's what the counselor said?
Seriously. So I leaned over and I said, does it cause a problem in your marriage? He says, of course not. I says, well, it does mine.
Yeah.
But then he turned it around somehow to be my life with my mother. Believe it or not. And we never reached talking about alcoholism, the past with Richie, and I never went back again.
Well,
until
right.
Years later, I turned to the AA center they had in Taunton.
Now, let's talk about your third book.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about the third
That
book?
starts from when...
Well, the title is?
Please God Not To.
Okay.
And that's the sequel to
Yep.
Someone Stop the Merry-Go-Round. And that starts right off the first chapter after Richie's death.
Yep.
In my life, bringing the girls up, again, they were 17 and 21. They were still at home.
Yep.
And I thought we were very close. And I thought Laurie was very happy. But I didn't realize that Laurie was devastated by her father's death. I've only found this out maybe 4 years ago. And if you knew Laurie, and her friends know, I house hopped with her girlfriends. So it's the same with Debbie's. I was happy to open the door. They all had good kids that came over. But finding out now, and even her friends that she was with are fighting the alcohol and drug abuse. And I say, how did I not know this?
Tell me about Laurie growing up. Was she a happy kid? She
was a very happy kid. She was very outgoing. But like I said, a few times I found out there were wild parties at the house with drinking. And I thought, well, you know, kids do that.
Of course.
There's a stage there. Never even related it to the same thing as following her father. And there was a house down the street that all the kids gathered, and the parents had allowed them to drink.
There's always that one house in the neighborhood where everyone
really?
goes.
Well,
yeah.
you know, I grounded, I can't tell you how many times I grounded her. And one day I said to myself, my God, I grounded her. I grounded myself because now I can't go out.
Right. That's right.
You got to find a little humor to it.
Well,
you know?
grounded yourself, yeah.
But 3 times I grounded her. It was the whole summer.
Yeah.
And it still didn't change it. But then when she got married, things sort of smoothed out, and I didn't hear anything about drinking. And then I was hearing after about 3 years, her marriage was falling apart. And I took her home a couple of times with her husband and her kids, but it just didn't last. So when you see this happening to kids, it breaks your heart, because it happened to me, and I didn't want it to happen to them. And there's Debbie. She meets a great guy since high school, and she's been married to him, you know, and everything's going perfect, and poor Laurie had everything upside down.
Right.
And it was always that way ever since.
So towards the end, she died at 39, right? No.
She died at 39 at the Child Memorial Hospital in Fall River.
So when she died, how did you emotionally recover from the death of not only Richie, but your daughter? How did you process it? Especially since alcoholism took them both.
Yeah, to me, no matter how young or how old a child is, you never heal. I have so many people ask me, did you heal from writing this? No, you don't heal.
Yeah.
What you do is have to try and figure out how you're going to go on living without them, what's going to fill that gap. And accidentally, a year after she died, I got on the phone, no plans to do it, have no idea how I did it. I just picked up the phone and I called Gosnell Rehab in Falmouth, where she was a patient twice, and asked if they ever had anybody speak to the patients on the other side from the family's point of view. And they said, no, usually when the patients are here, family has given up. Their hopes are dry.
Right.
So I said, I'd like to speak. Well, after I hung up, I cried, I fell apart, and I said, what am I doing? But I finally got myself there, and I spoke for an hour to 30 young girls and women. And I made the hour, and I was really delighted, because the counselor said she thought it was the most powerful talk she has ever heard, and that's the first time the girls never even moved around.
So did that begin the healing process for you?
That started me realizing I couldn't bring Laurie back, but I was hoping I could reach somebody else, especially when the girls come up and they hug you, and you can tell from their heart when they thank you for coming. So slowly I'm getting out more. In fact, next month I have an appointment with another rehab in Brockton.
Yep.
And I want to do more than that. Now I want to reach out to businesses.
Yep.
To see if I'm going to, next year I'm going to call it the Employee Support service, just to reach out for ones that they're having problems with. Not that I'm a counselor, you know, just to give them support and let them see how it affects the whole family. I
mean, I've always been a proponent of lived experience. Like with CCBC, they employ peers who are in mental health recovery. And I always felt that people with lived experience, even though you didn't have the alcoholism, you have lived experience with people who have abused alcohol.
Yeah.
So you must get some satisfaction out of the fact that, like we had talked before, if you reach one person, even though it's a cliche, it's the truth.
Yeah.
It really is.
I was also waiting for the sequel to come out with the 2 books on alcoholism.
Now, are you working on one now?
No, I mean the second.
Oh, okay.
Sequel. Once that was done, I said, now I can really go out and speak to any location about it. I really wanted to get those books out. So
finally, I just want to, we got a few minutes left. Just tell me, we were talking, and spirituality is a fun subject of mine. How have you found spirituality to help you heal through this?
I believe going to Medjugorje healed me.
Yeah.
Because I witnessed the 6 visionaries having apparitions with the Blessed Mother, and it also led me to doing speaking engagements like at the Providence Marriott to the Magnificat, which is a Catholic women's ministry. That's how I started. And so I speak about my trip. So I not only speak about alcoholism, but I also speak about my change in my spirituality. It's got nothing to do with a special faith. It's just talking about within yourself with a change. But to me, I thank God I went, because I know in my heart that God is merciful, that I'll never know, none of us will never know why we lose anybody.
I mean, I don't know myself. I wish I did have I wish I knew the answer to that. I think that's the mystery of life, though.
Yeah, you'll never know.
We don't know, but it seems like the healing process for you is, you know, come from unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
But, you know, the writing, I think, is a wonderful. I like to write myself, but it seems like you have found the path and the way to express yourself and sort of purge. And speaking, I'm sure you get a lot out of that as well.
Yes, like you feel when you speak. If you can help one person, it's. So I know my life is going to change, because now I know I'm not going to be a retired person sitting on a tropical island.
It would be nice, though, Alberta.
I know, but
because if you do, send me an invitation. I'll be there in a second, unless Alex has me here in the studio. But I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. We enjoyed your story, and hope to hear from you in the future.
Oh, thank you.
All right, that's another edition of The Other Side. We'd like to thank Alberta Sequeria, and take care and be well.